Hi there and welcome along. Now today we're looking at the Picture House, Granby Street in Leicester. So without further ado, the Picture House was built for and operated by Provincial Cinematograph Theatres, PCT, and opened on Thursday the 22nd of December 1910. It had its main entrance on Granby Street and also had an imposing facade located at the rear on Every Street on Town Hall Square, which served as the front stalls entrance, in other words, the screen end. It was designed by the architectural firm of Naylor and Sale and had a seating capacity of approximately 600, made up of 500 in the stalls and about 100 in the balcony. The front entrance on Granby Street was through part of the premises belonging to the Leicester Coffee House Company. From the street through a portico of granite pillars, over a marble pavement into a comfortable Old English lounge, complete with oak panelling and an inglenook fireplace. The general colour scheme of the cinema was scarlet with Reseda green relief. The cinema also contained, by the way, a cloakroom and a parcel office. Now, looking at the projection room, this is only a mock-up picture, of course, but the projection room at the Picture House was entirely fireproof, much, I suppose, like this one. Now, here's a quote from the Leicester Daily Post, Friday, December the 23rd, 1910. It says, "One of the more striking features of the theatre proper is the balcony at the back, access to which is gained from the lounge. The floor rises in tiers, and as the seats are 3 feet apart from centre to centre, they afford the maximum of comfort. The seating downstairs is arranged in 3 groups by 2 lateral aisles, and ample spacing gives exceptional comfort. The proscenium arch is surmounted by plastic work with caryatides supporting the roof trusses and dividing the wall space into bays, which gives a particularly handsome appearance to the interior." They could write in those days. On the opening night, tea was served to all the invited guests, and Mr. J. Newbold, Senior Director of PCT, introduced Lady Noreen Bass. She apologised for the fact that her husband, Sir William Bass, was unable to attend. She wished the cinema well and took pleasure in declaring it open to loud cheers. Several films were shown, including Glimpses of Wild Bird Life, The Royal Mint, a film hitherto unpublished, Winona, a Western love story, and A Day with the Foxhounds, another film hitherto unpublished. We have a programme for the Picture House from 1917, courtesy of the CTA, and before that we have the CTA's supplementary notes regarding the programme. This in itself is an interesting insight into a timeline of cinemas in Leicester. Now, at this time, the Picture House boasted a 40-piece symphony orchestra for the duration of this programme at least. Let's take a look. The Picture House closed on the 5th of May 1925 for a complete refurbishment and rebuilding. The facade and front section of the building on Granby Street was demolished and a new entrance created. The auditorium was reversed, so the entry from Granby Street was now from behind the screen. A circle was added, entry to which was via slips on each side of the 40 feet wide proscenium, again with patrons entering having to walk away from the screen to reach their seats. Now unfortunately I've been unable, try as I might, to locate any pictures of the interior of the picture house at all. The renovation and rebuilding of the building was carried out to the designs of architect H. Rigg. So there was now a spacious entry foyer and also a large restaurant above it on Granby Street. Decoration in the auditorium was classical, with swags of plaster flowers on the front of the balcony and a barrel vaulted ceiling. Seating was now provided for 1,611 in stalls and circle. It reopened on the 3rd of August 1925, and in early 1926 a Wurlitzer organ was installed to one side of the screen. There was no pit or lift, and none was needed, and it was opened by organist Jack Courtney. In February 1929, PCT were taken over by Gaumont British Theatres. The Wurlitzer organ was removed in 1938 to be installed in the Exchange Cinema, Northampton, also a PCT cinema. It's now in Paul Kerner's Music Palace in Porth and is beautifully restored. In 1936, according to the Kinney Yearbook, Leicester boasted 25 cinemas. The picture house had a Western Electric sound system, and prices there were 1 shilling to 2 shillings. That's 5p to 10p. The picture house continued to be a popular city centre cinema for many, many years, eventually though being taken over by the Rank organisation. The arrival of CinemaScope was not a great asset to the picture house. The auditorium was narrow and the dedicated screen width was small, resulting in the side masking having nowhere to go. This meant that the only way to present scope was to drop the top masking, and it was dropped quite considerably. Some even say that the bottom masking moved upwards too, but I doubt this was true. The picture house was evidently not the place to see a scope film, but such was the love for the picture house that people just endured that tiny letterbox scope. During the 1960s, Rank were operating 3 cinemas in the city centre: the huge 2,000 plus seat Odeon, the former City Cinema, which they had redeveloped as a roadshow cinema known as the Odeon Marketplace, and the picture house, which was deemed surplus to requirements at the time, but it continued on with good audiences and only closed on the 9th of June 1973, and the restaurant had been open until almost the end. The cinema, though, was a magnificent example of 1920s luxury cinema and was very well maintained. Even original gas secondary lighting was still in use. The building stood empty and boarded up for over 7 years until it was sold for redevelopment. Sadly, it was demolished in January 1981, and how on earth did they ever let that happen? Apart from the original rear end and facade on Every Street, Town Hall Square, which was converted to offices. On Granby Street, a new building was built, which originally housed a travel agent and a pizza restaurant. The Every Street Town Hall Square facade was retained as it was designated a Grade 2 listed building. Heritage England, though, delisted the facade. Now let's have a look at some of the staff who we've been able to find who worked at the Picture House, Granby Street in Leicester. Here's a few comments from Facebook. Mike JC said, I visited this place fairly frequently in the early to mid-60s. It was a very strange cinema due to its back-to-front construction. Unfortunately, the screen was severely limited by the width of the building, and in CinemaScope days it was like watching a film through a letterbox, as the top masking had to be cranked in so very much. Not a very enjoyable experience. Harry Rigby said, "I visited the box in the 60s. I remember the chief was a very nice lady called Florence Barton. The throw was very long, and again, if my memory is correct, the backing lenses for scope were 9 inches. As a previous correspondent has said, the proscenium was so narrow they had to halve the height for scope. The chief said that it was such a popular cinema you could run a roll of tickets through the projector and still take money." Helga Husenrunter said, "Once I went up into the projection room at the picture house, which had a very steep rake, so much so that there were wooden boxes at the rear of the arcs for engineers to stand on to service them." Well, that's about it for this one. I hope you liked all I could find on the Picture House, Granby Street in Leicester. And until next time, when we look at another cinema lost forever, be good to each other, and I'll see you soon. Ta-da.